All right, all right, all right. Let's go ahead and replay this. All right. I'm not gonna talk very much, but for my own edification, I'll probably mute this track, or I might just put the rain track on top of it for the test. So we're seeing two bullish signs here on the 1 minute time frame, and let's go back and look at our overall context. We're doing some scalping here, and so what just happened last hour about, we had this down move, right? We're coming back up. I'm looking for price to come and tap back into this area so that I can go ahead and run these lows here, which, if we zoom out, we want to see as a reaccumulation model to mitigate a particular area inside of this zone. Because when we continue to zoom out on higher time frames, we see that this was a pretty deep pullback, but there's no reason to ultimately think we're going to continue bearish. We go all the way up to the daily, and on the daily, we're just tapping into this particular MA or cloud, if you will. But let's remove a lot of that, and let's just go back to our basic principles here. All right, just basic price action. Let's remove everything and let's start from the top, right? So we're seeing on the daily price action, right? Had that last zone down there. You could actually argue that was intermediate, and you got a lot of price action going something like this, right? Ran, and then it finally ran here. And then what I'm gonna ask is, where did this break here come from? It came from somewhere up in here, right? But ultimately, if we were watching price, ultimately we want to see a break above this high here, right? Or we're looking for a reason to go short, so something like this, right? I'm just trying to tell you what we'd be at and what we probably, if we didn't have a higher time bias, we'd probably get in on, right? So we'd look there, we'd say, okay, well, we had that entire area. So if we're making a case to be bearish, right, we want to see these lows ran, which, interestingly enough, this case is already starting to pull back and say, hey, this is bullish, right? Because we have this ran, we have this, but we want to see this break this to validate potential bullishness overall. So even if we're trying to make the bear case, this is literally just part of the reaccumulation model that we were just talking about, where we want to see price in the zone that we're in currently reaccumulate in a way where we have lows breaking lows, then breaking highs, then we want to see retest into areas to take trades off of. So even here, if we're looking at the daily and we're saying, hey, we wanted to take a trade in here, right? We're trying to take ourselves back in time. We don't live there, but we understand it's a data point. Where's my, right here. Awesome. So potentially, let's go into here and replay time, just to see what happened, right? So we're on the hour time frame right now. Let's see how low we can go. 15, sweet. Okay, so it comes up into here on the 15, right? We have this large daily zone. We're like, this is very important. We want to see a turnaround here, right? So we're playing price action. We're seeing it come up. It's just breaking highs, breaking highs, breaking highs. Finally breaks a low, right? Now we're convinced that something wants to happen in here for us to continue lower, right? So boom, you look, maybe a zone like that. You see this last wick up here. Technically it's something like this, right? And the only reason we're picturing the possibilities here of how we could get to a particular turnaround in the zone and still be profitable with the overall bias of this still going up, right? So we maybe put something like that, like right there. And we have these two striped pajamas here. So we see price coming up into here. We probably hit the replay button again. See if we can pull ourselves back here. Maybe go down to a 5-minute. Right, so what do we see here? We see price shoot up into here, and then it breaks one time, maybe sell stop here, but even if we did try and sell stop, we have a break above, so this is invalid. Now we're looking at this tap in here, right? So we see a large move down. Now we're looking for a pullback, and we're looking to get in on this. So maybe we see this pull back, and we're happy with that, right? Because you could say, okay, break above. Where's the last unmitigated zone here? Technically, it's all the way up here. So actually, we're going to stick with the technically, so we can be very technical with our rules here. So let's go ahead and maybe we have to make it a darker gray. Yeah. And like that. Awesome. So we see that, right, because we have this break structure here. And now we're trying to say, okay, well, we want to see it pull back here. We see it drop off again. Maybe we look for a re-entry in here. Right, tap in somewhere here. Drops off again, drops off again. Then we start to see it break above, right? So maybe we're looking for, because we don't get entries here, right? We could take the risk entries and say, hey, let's go down on the lower time frame, which I can't really see here right now. But maybe you say this is pullback, maybe you try to take that, and then you run and you get some piece in here. Or, you know, you see it come back after it breaks here, you see this zone right here. And maybe you consider this a redistribution, right? So you see it break down and you want to see it come back, right? Sign of weakness, and then up thrust, and then maybe it falls off, right? So then you're looking at price action in here and you're like, okay, well, we have this break, this low, maybe this is a sign of weakness to continue going lower, right? So maybe we want to look for a sell stop off of this area, but then we see a small break up here. We're like, okay, well, we have a tap in, so that's actually what we wanted. Maybe we go down to a 1 minute. And we start to see price break in the opposite direction, which is what we want, right? So we see it break down right here. Maybe we sell stop this, something like that. Now, do we get tap in? We don't. It pulls all the way back up to here. Then we finally get tapped in right here. And then we can say, okay, well, and again, I've already seen this price, so I don't want to, this is me making a case for this setup so that we can consistently refine the setups to exactly what we want them to look like, so that we can set rules around what that, how it comes to be like that, and then we follow those rules on how it becomes to be like that in order to potentially get the higher probability of getting this 1 to 7, or if we decide on a different risk management strategy, we see this large down move, so boom, it falls all the way off. So maybe it's starting to turn around here. Okay, great. So we start to see maybe this is the last low, and we say, hey, break even there. So what is that? 1 to 5, 6. That's probably not. That's actually not acceptable. So we have to wait till it becomes 1 to 2 to move it to any type of break even. So it makes sense, right? So we can move it here. So we see this break down here, we say, okay, well, we're comfortable moving it right here. And then, okay, great. Because then you say it starts coming back up on us. And so, okay, well, maybe we didn't completely trail it to a 1 to 7. So realistic expectation on, you know, last lows. I mean, I guess technically you could start to follow that and pull out a little bit more out the market, right? Because you see fall off here. We never come back and retest, but we fall off here. So then we say, okay, well, let's move it to this high right here, 1 to 2.77, right? Then you see maybe it falls off here. Maybe you're counting some of these areas in here as fall off, right? These large moves down until finally, boop, comes back up. And maybe, I'm saying you secured this right at 3.5. Solid, no partials taken anywhere in here. We're just trailing here. So maybe you actually get this 3.5, right, before it starts to come back. So maybe that is one strategy that you actually took. Now, as we probably know, it's going to come back up and it's going to liquidate that high again. Let's go ahead and get higher, actually. So liquidates all of that, right? But you can see it's starting to come back down. So even if I didn't zoom in here, you could see something like this, right? And then let's zoom in, because we saw this large wick down on the higher time frame. We can say, okay, well maybe we might see a double MB where we can sell stop this, right? Or a redistribution model. So then we speed it up, see what happens. And it looks like we have more room to run here. So we could start to say intermediate price action. We want to see, no, we want to see a pullback up there. Okay, we see it actually get a bit higher here, right? But we could say that's absorption. Now we want to see a break to the downside. Now we ultimately want to see a turnaround. So we have it come back. We want to see it it came in and touched and tapped in there. Let's zoom down a little bit lower. Right, we had this broken up here. Maybe you say this is the last zone. You still have this zone right here as well. It probably looks like a better zone. Like something like that. Because you could technically buy climax, up thrust, maybe UTAD. I mean, you say sign of weakness, and then you say UTAD or something like that. Potentially. But we see it looks like it's accumulating actually on a lower time frame. Oh, we have a breakdown. So now we're just microing it, which we want to zoom out, right, and get back to the overall context with the idea that we're trying to run these lows. All right, let's go here. Right, let's just refactor and reframe what we're expecting. So yeah, we're trying to make a case for it going back down here or running these lows here. So we actually are overall short, and we want this to work out for us. So we're going to continue on. Oh, and we have a large drop off. Boom. Maybe we see something like this. We zoom in a bit. See if we can find, oh, perfect, right here. Something like that. All right, you pull that back. This will be a juicy trade if you see it come back in there. Oh, double B to the downside. Let's see if we're starting to hit back. Oh, nope. So now what do we want to see? Well, yet again, we want to look for unmitigated zones, because now we're following the trend here. Oh, and we just fall off. So now we come up into this area, right? And this is where it would be helpful to be like, okay, well, what are we looking at now? This looks pretty red. So it looks like we look for something to redistribute. So we want to see probably another break, pull back break, and then fall off, right? And again, we're looking for these reasons, right? Maybe we put this on here too. All right, we're in there. But we're looking, okay, we see a break. Right, we have wrist up, break above. Now, when we look at some of these indicators, we actually want to see it come back down. So we want to see it, if it's going to go, honestly, we're going to sell stop it because it's going to run a good amount here, right? I'm looking just very short term here. Yeah, so this is where it's like, okay, precision, because we're still, right now I'm expecting it to want to run down, right? So this would be break, we'll have a come up. Now we look for a double MB break to the downside, right? We have one, pull back, and then now we're looking for it to do something like that. Okay, so it barely missed tapping us in, but let's just say that's a -1, you know, so we're fair. So now we're cruising up. 1, 2. Well, not 2 just yet, right? Now we want to see break down. Okay, we see 1 break, right? So break here. Now we definitely could take some triple M. Yep, so we do this. We give us some padding here. 0.5, let's do that. And let's see if we can run, yeah, 1 or 2 right here before breaking even. All right, so now we're here. Let's move it to break even. All right, and what I'm looking at here is just this band printing, right? I don't see it turning green, so I'm like, I don't feel the urge right now to move it all the way down to here. But I am seeing it's getting close, right? So you could say now right here, we can lock in a 1 to 2, potentially, because that's a 1 to 2 right there. Yeah, that looks good to lock in, where if it's going to continue to run, right, you have all of this green, all these positions to liquidate at these anchor points, right, till like around down here. Or if that's what you wanted to envision, right? You could come up with a different strategy, but we're going to let it run right now and see if it takes us out. Let's see what we get from this. So now it looks like we could secure even more because we're having these breaks, right? Breaks, breaks, breaks. So something like this, right? Trail to stop. So there you go, 285 in profit so far. And we'll see where it continues to want to go. All right, so let's zoom in. Or excuse me, zoom out, apologies. Uh-oh. And it looks like it just started. You can see money flow is finally starting to turn red. You see the VWAP not even, it looks like it might flick down. But see, right now what I'm doing is I'm building a case in my own mind of why I want to see it come down lower. Because ultimately, if you look at it, it looks like reaccumulation. That's like a retest here to continue higher. Which, if again, we go here, I mean, it looks like we do kind of want to run the highs here. Right, but we already know this. We know it does run the highs here. Because look, it's in the green right here. Now, if we were looking for more buys, right, to continue on, we'd look for somewhere down in here, right, to ultimately go higher. Now, I'm just going to fast forward this, right, so like a day or two, because we were over here. Or no, we're right in here. Wow. Already lost. You see how far in we were? Look at that. We are in deep, bro. Alright, we're all up in here like trying to figure out how we're gonna manage this. And it looks like it actually comes back and it stops me out to 285. You still secure 285, right? And you can see price. That's what we were expecting it to do. Okay, great. And maybe I memorized this somewhere in my subconscious and I'm actually just following it based on some bullshit. But you saw me go back and I was like, okay, well, the idea here is that we want to make money in the area where we see it go down, right? Because ultimately it ends up coming, oh my goodness. We're looking at a very, very small portion. You saw that, right? So the interesting thing about the way that you can trade here is that, and this is going mighty slow, even us just looking in this area, right? If we don't take that, if we have a different risk management strategy, after it falls off there, it falls off the cliff. So then, even just following that, just trying to have an idea of that, like, you can make, that's 1 to 50 right there. But that's all generating, okay, micro breaks down, looks like it's coming in for the retest, redistribute, okay, redistributes, it comes down, right? We see it starting to come down, we see it turn red, we see it turn green here, so maybe it's signaling us, but we still want to see it come down lower. And so maybe we don't move it, maybe we have a risk management strategy where we see, hey, we want to see it more red before we decide to close it, right? So like maybe even theoretically, this is your stopping point here, right? Or even you be a bit more conservative after you see all this red just dumping out, right? You just say, hey, you start to see some green here and you get spooked, you get a 1 to 19. But that's if you're combining all of these layers on top of each other, which takes a lot of practice and recognition to do, which means that you need to go back and just do this consistently and see what you want the best case to look like, and then see how many times that best case actually happens in the market. And you keep redoing that over and over and over, until you find the best case that happens the most in the most recent time frame that'll allow you to trade on the 30-second, that'll allow you to confirm on the 15-second, that'll allow you to reconfirm on the 5-second or even the 1-second to potentially get these big runs that last approximately, for this particular trade, let's say you manage it in the way that I just mentioned, 7 to 8 hours. So, you know, a full working day. This actually started when? It started at 11:57, the 21st of February. Ooh, this is way back. Oh, hold on. What am I doing? Oh yeah. So you know what? I replayed it so far back that hold on. Let's cancel this out. Let's go to the 1 hour. Right, so let's go back to where I was making the case for. Yeah, somewhere in here actually. Yes, in here. Yeah, so it was in February. Before it went up, right? So we were looking at a small smidgen of what's actually going on. And we decided like, hey, this might be a good place to trade inside of here, right? And we even tried some stuff over here. But yeah, right here, the 23rd. And we still have that. Let's let me move it to where it runs all the way down to, and then we can find that somewhere around here, right? So let's move that here. And again, this is in our mind so we realize what's possible and what's probable. That's very important. That is very, very much important here. What's possible and what's probable to happen. Because understanding the possibilities from something that is not actually following the overall trend, the overall trend here is bullish, you can see. But even if we decided this might be a good turnaround point because we've already determined that this was a valid area where we could look for sales, right? If we're looking directly on price action, we see a break all the way down here, right? If we're not looking at intermediate, this was the last up move. So we refine it to something all the way up into here. Now price gets all the way up into here. It starts to turn around, and it so happens that the turnaround here is pretty great. And we could even argue that if we're potential, let's zoom in over here. So let's go have that in here, and let's find our entry over here. Like and a lot of stuff going on in here, right? In this area. So we're gonna hunt this, y'all. I just want to be able to pull the price, because I know I pulled it pretty low over here, where I should be able to see it on these slightly higher time frames, but they're pretty low time frames in the grand context of things. Okay, forget it. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to move it all the way back here. And we're actually going to go in. There we go. That's only capturing crumbs. Absolute crumbs. Right? So we pull this all the way down here and say, where did it ultimately go? You see, but you ultimately got it at a pretty high area, right? So like all the way down into here, right? If you hold these things and somehow you get a pinpoint entry, right? It's still undefeated. Look at that. Let's pull this all the way out like that. There we go. There we go. Pull that all the way. Exactly like that. Look at that. Look at that. You know, you dig? You see what I'm saying? So then we pull this out to the 3 or 4 hour and we say, okay, let's continue it. Let's Z that. So I'm not screwing up my freaking price, right? So then we get out of replay mode and you look and you say, that could have ran without even stopping you out at the break-even points, right? Because this was the last point where we say, hey, stop us out at break-even. If we managed in that way, then you see here after it broke down, and you're like, I'm not gonna take profit even until it turns green on the 3 hour. You still can get up to 269 risk reward, right? Which is absolutely insane. Now, obviously, when I'm looking at this, you have to, how things work in reality is that you ultimately have to keep reinforcing the good ideas that you want to bring into fruition, right? So that you can tune things that you do in your day-to-day life to be able to achieve that particular outcome. And so we want to think forward and say, hey, this is one of the best type of setups that we could ever get that would give us the biggest amount of profit if we follow a set of rules to identify what's going on in these particular areas, in these zones, that even though we still want to be bullish, we ultimately want to be bullish, right? So we see price coming to here, and maybe we're getting spooked because we're like, hey, we want to be bullish. We want to see it reaccumulate to ultimately go higher, right? Now, which we want to see this reaccumulate to ultimately go higher, right? But even if you decided, you know what, I'm bearish, screw it, I want to see this all run down, you run this low here, and now you're looking for a retest into here. Now maybe you actually don't get that for sure, but this is the possibilities you could have even if you were just using this band to do trade management in a way. So anyways, I just wanted to go through that thought process in one full stream of consciousness that I actually recorded, which is about 32 minutes. So I'm going to leave that here, and that's it.